Welcome to Longevity Codes with your host, Fred Herbert. This podcast is about living a longer, healthier, and more active life. Each week, Fred shares strategies from experts about not only living longer, but helping us discover our personal longevity codes to live life to the fullest. This podcast is sponsored by RedoxLongevity.com, where we'll discover what experts are calling the most amazing breakthrough in our lifetime that affects health, anti-aging, and sports performance. Learn more at RedoxLongevity.com. That's www.RedoxLongevity.com. And now, here's our host, Fred Herbert.
You're probably wondering, what is this free and simple longer life secret? Well, the answer is, it's autophagy. A-U-T-O-P-H-A-G-Y. We're going to dig deeper into autophagy, but one of the best ways to promote it is through intermittent fasting. Think about it. You don't have to buy anything, and you actually save money. It can't get any easier. And I call it a secret because so few people in the mainstream are even talking about it. And look, there's no money in telling people to fast. I guess unless you're selling a book on fasting. In the podcast I did, The Perfect Longevity Diet, I called fasting the undiet because it doesn't really fit the normal description of a diet. I've also talked a lot in the past about the importance of focusing on cellular health. If we can help our cells to repair and renew, we'll naturally live a longer and healthier life. Mainly because we'll avoid so many of the diseases that are related to cellular damage. In this podcast, we're talking about how fasting has been shown to help our cells with the process we've already talked about, autophagy. And I'm sure you'll be as excited to learn about this discovery as I was. In 2016, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine went to Yoshinori Ohsumi at the Tokyo Institute of Technology. He discovered the mechanisms underlying autophagy, which is the fundamental process in which cells degrade, recycle, and repair themselves. So what is this autophagy all about? Well, the word actually comes from two Greek words. Auto for self, and phagi means eating. So literally, it means self-eating. While that may sound kind of gross, it's simply our body's process of cleaning out damaged cells so they can regenerate with new, healthy cells. I bet you didn't realize that we were designed with a self-cleaning recycling system. Helen Thompson wrote in The New Scientist, quote, Ohsumi's discoveries were vital for our understanding of the process of autophagy in response to starvation or infection. Autophagy also contributes to embryo development, and later it was shown that mutations in the genes responsible for autophagy can cause genetic disease, and that disruptions in the process of autophagy are linked with Parkinson's disease, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. Autophagy is also thought to be a critical mechanism for countering some of the negative consequences of aging. End quote. And of course, that's what this podcast is all about. Ohsumi had this to say about his own findings, quote, as research into autophagy has expanded, it has become clear that it's not simply a response to starvation. It also contributes to a range of physiological functions, such as inhibiting cancer cells and aging, eliminating pathogens, and cleaning the insides of cells. We have also begun to see a small explosion in research that demonstrates a new function with the knocking out genes that contribute to autophagy. However, there is still much we do not know about the mechanism of autophagy, and this calls for serious study. I hope to go on to study autophagy at the molecular level, to tackle the mechanism head on. That is my mission. End quote. What does this have to do with fasting? As Ohsumi indicated, it seems when you starve the cell, it forces it to either get stronger, die, or rebuild a new cell. I first learned the benefits of fasting from the work of Dr. Jason Fung, who claims to have reversed diabetes in hundreds of his patients with fasting as the primary tool. I read his book, The Complete Guide to Fasting, and found it fascinating and, of course, backed by scientific studies. Here's what Dr. Fung told writers at Rising when asked about how fasting for 7 days could prevent cancer. Quote, apoptosis, which is also known as programmed cell death, is when cells commit suicide. It sounds kind of macabre, but it's essential for good health. The cells of our bodies are like cars. When they get too old to be repaired, they need to be destroyed to make way for healthy new cells. Up to 70 billion every day. Not all cars are to be scrapped, though. Sometimes you can replace the parts, and this is where autophagy kicks in. Autophagy is a form of cleansing, the process of breaking down and recycling cellular components when there's no longer enough energy to sustain them. Once all the broken down parts have been cleansed, new tissues and cells are built to replace the old ones. So our bodies are in a constant state of renewal. But when the processes are hijacked, unwanted cellular bits build up and diseases such as cancer occur. End quote. When asked why fasting can reduce cancer risks, Dr. Fung replied, quote, when the body senses the temporary absence of nutrients, it must prioritize which cellular parts to keep. The oldest and most worn-out cells get discarded, and amino acids from the broken down cell parts are delivered to the liver, which uses them to create glucose during gluconeogenesis, a natural process in the body that helps to maintain stable blood sugar levels. Cancer may be the result of what's called disordered autophagy. We're learning that this process plays a role in cancer biology, and products that inhibit this process have been approved by the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. for treatment of cancers. Fasting's role in stimulating autophagy provides an opportunity to prevent cancer. And that's why Dr. Seyfried proposes a yearly 7-day water-only fast. End quote. What do you think? Could an annual 7-day water-only fast be a longevity code to preventing cancer? For me, I do a 24-hour fast every week and have done a 48-hour fast. And I'm working on making this 7-day fast a part of my annual longevity strategy. C.M. Land is a sociological anthropologist, and he wrote a book on the subject titled Metabolic Autophagy, Practice Intermittent Fasting and Resistance Training to Build Muscle and Promote Longevity. Here are a few things Mr. Land had to say about autophagy, aging, and longevity. Quote, at first I didn't delve into the longevity aspect of it, but after a while, it kind of just emerged, this idea of autophagy and stem cells. I went down the rabbit hole and started to realize it's a very critical part of anti-aging, as well as just general homeostasis of our cellular functioning. He goes on to say, autophagy is this process that our body goes through when it wants to or when it needs to repair or heal itself. It has a crucial role in many of the diseases that we suffer from. Conditions like insulin resistance and liver disease can benefit from autophagy. Even Alzheimer's and heart failure, they're kind of connected with this process of autophagy. End quote. I've been studying and practicing fasting for several years and have found a common theme between many of the researchers. The point most of them make is that having abundant food at our disposal all the time, or having 3 square meals a day, and even snacks between meals, is a recent development in human history. Since the beginning of man up till just a couple hundred years ago, food was not as abundant, and our bodies were designed to handle feast and famine. I recognize there are experts saying we should eat many times a day in an effort to keep our blood sugars level, but this may be flawed for many reasons, especially when it comes to our cellular health. The other thing we hear often, especially in the paleo movement, is that our bodies also weren't designed to handle all the chemicals and processed foods that are abundant in today's Western diet. There is sound logic behind the paleo concept of not eating anything a caveman wouldn't have eaten. That simple rule would keep us away from so many unhealthy processed foods. Our bodies were also not designed to handle the huge amounts of sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and the unhealthy hydrogenated oils. Another thing often mentioned about fasting is that it's been practiced in religions from ancient civilizations to many religions that still practice fasting today. Fasting is a normal part of the human experience, and science is now showing us how valuable it is for our cellular health. Here are 10 reasons to implement intermittent fasting as one of your longevity code strategies. 1. It can help you live longer by slowing down the aging process. 2. Help ward off cancer, as we just talked about. 3. It helps with weight loss. Of course, that's a no-brainer, unless after a fast you binge to make up for it. 4. Improved heart health and lowered blood pressure. 5. Reduce insulin resistance or risk of type 2 diabetes. 6. Reduce oxidative stress and inflammation. 7. Helps with cellular repair, as we just talked about with the process of autophagy. 8. Improve mental acuity and brain function. 9. May help prevent Alzheimer's. And 10. There's evidence that it can help with Parkinson's disease. Here's what Dr. Joseph Mercola had to say about fasting and autophagy. Quote, "Based on the research that has emerged in recent years, I'm now convinced that multi-day water fasting is one of the most profound metabolic interventions you can do to radically improve your health, as it allows your body to upregulate autophagy and mitophagy to remove damaged sentient cells, including premalignant cells. It's also an extremely effective way to shed excess weight and extend your lifespan." He goes on to say, there are a few caveats, however. If you're on medication, you need to work with your doctor to ensure safety, as some medications need to be taken with food and/or can be toxic when your body chemistry normalizes. Those taking hypoglycemic or antihypertension medicine are particularly at risk, as they may end up overdosing. End quote. Here's some common types of fasting. The first one is the circadian rhythm fast. This fast mimics our body's natural clock by fasting after sunset to sunrise, approximately 13 hours long. Next up is a 16-hour fast, and you eat for 8 hours. Hugh Jackman made this popular as a quick way to remove excess weight. Then there's the 18-hour fast, which gives you 6 hours to eat. This type of fast helps the liver remove more glycogen and also helps our bodies use ketones for fuel while helping our body to remove cells that are damaged. There's also the 5-2 eating plan. For the week, we eat normally for 5 days, and the other 2 days restrict calorie intake to 500 calories for women and 600 for men. I must admit I've never tried this one. And then there's the 24-hour fast. This is simple. Don't eat or drink anything with calories for 24 hours. As I mentioned, this is the one I practice each week. I prefer to go from dinner to dinner, and my wife likes breakfast to breakfast better. Just find out what works best for you. Then there's dinner to breakfast. Of course, breakfast means break your fast. With this, you have no snacking and drink only water or herbal tea. Next up, the 48-hour fast. This seems to be an especially good length of time to be sure you're in a good state of autophagy. And lastly, the multi 3 to 5 day fast. C.M. Land, who we talked about earlier, says he likes to do the 3 to 5 day fast about once a quarter. He says that after 5 days, the value is diminished unless you're after a specific result like reducing a cancerous tumor or other therapeutic reasons. Land also says he likes to break his fast slowly with a hot drink with lemon, sliced ginger, and a couple teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. He mentions this wakes up the stomach and prepares it to better start taking in food. He also suggests starting with some fermented foods with healthy probiotics to help with digestion. Land also suggests that before a multi-day fast, you'll do a lot better with a day or so before eating a ketogenic diet. Of course, the list of the types of fasts could be endless, and the type of fast you should consider depends on the results you're after. We're all different, and what works best for me may not work well for you. For me, at first, fasting was a real struggle. I was one of those people always thinking about food and what am I going to eat next? I was actually afraid to even experience hunger. It must be some deep psychological issue, but fasting taught me that skipping a few meals not only wouldn't hurt me, but was actually freeing. The benefits of fasting are very clear, but counter to so much of what we've been told. Until recently, I hadn't heard anything about autophagy and why it helps with longevity and how it's helped by fasting. This research into how our cells work is fascinating, and I'll continue to research and share more in the future as it relates to health and longevity. The research and logic supporting intermittent fasting is strong enough for me to continue this in my life and even take it up a notch with those quarterly 3-day fasts and that annual 7-day fast to reset my cells and reduce my risk of cancer. Do your own research, and if you have any serious health issues, you'll need to check with your doctor first before fasting. As Dr. Bacola suggested, it's especially important to talk with your doctor if you're on any medications. The only caution I'd give you is this stuff is not taught in medical schools, and fasting for health and prevention doesn't fit well in our system of fixing everything with pharmaceuticals. Don't be surprised if your medical professional disagrees with this idea. Remember, longevity is not just about the quantity of your years, it's about the quality of those extra years. You're now one step closer to cracking your own personal longevity code.
Thanks for listening to Longevity Codes. For more information, go to longevitycodes.com. To learn more about our sponsor, check out redoxlongevity.com. Tune in to next week's podcast, where you'll learn more strategies on living a longer, healthier, and more active life.